Today I'm going to read to you a book that is a story but also some math learning. So this is Tiger Math, Learning to Graph from a Baby Tiger by Ann Whitehead-Nagda and Cindy Bickle. So there are some photos of the actual tiger that the story this is about. First time in the swimming pool, TJ's favorite ball, skateboarding cat, dragging boots around is tiring, and posing for the camera. So, TJ, the baby tiger, introduction. It is a very special event when a Siberian tiger is born because there are so few of them left in the world. This book will use graphs to help tell the story of TJ, a Siberian tiger cub born at the Denver Zoo. Just as words can tell a story, so can graphs. Graphs are math pictures that make it easy to see and understand information about numbers. This book will introduce 4 different kinds of graphs: pictographs, circle graphs, bar graphs, and line graphs. If you want to read the story of TJ the tiger without the math, you can read only the right-hand pages of this book, but we're not going to do that. Then, to learn more and see exactly how TJ grew, you can look at the graphs on the left-hand pages. So here we can see our first graph. Pictographs use pictures to make it easy to compare things. The image above is a picture graph that shows how many tigers are left in the wild. Each tiger drawing stands for 500 tigers. To read this graph, choose a kind of tiger from the names along the bottom: Bengal tiger, Indo-Chinese tiger, Sumatran tiger, and Siberian tiger. Then count how many tiger drawings are in that tiger's column and multiply that number by 500. This graph makes it easy to see that there are fewer Sumatran and Siberian tigers than there are other kinds of tigers. And if I look here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the pictographs in the Bengal tiger, which means that there are 4,000 in this pictograph. So every time you see one of these, you have to remember to always look for the key to see what you are multiplying it by. TJ the tiger cub and Bukra, his mother. Bukra, the Siberian tiger, was going to have a baby. The keepers at the Denver Zoo had already placed a video camera in her den so they could check on the mother tiger without disturbing her. When the cub was born, they watched Bukra and her baby on a TV screen. Bukra was a good mother, licking, nuzzling, and nursing her new baby. The cub, named TJ, weighed only 3 pounds and looked tiny next to his mother, who weighed 250 pounds. TJ's father, Matthew, was even bigger than Bukra. He weighed 350 pounds. TJ would have to gain a lot of weight to be as big as his father. Tigers in the wild. Here we have a circle graph. Another way to show how many tigers are left in the wild is to use a circle graph. A circle graph, or pie chart, shows what part of a whole something is. The whole circle represents all the tigers left in the world. This graph makes it easy to see that there are a lot of Bengal tigers and very few South China tigers. There are so few South China tigers left that they couldn't be shown on the picture graph on page 8. They would have been just a small piece of the tiger picture. This image here is of Matthew, TJ's father, and he weighed 350 pounds. When TJ was 6 weeks old, the zoo veterinarian gave him shots and weighed him. The cub weighed 10 pounds. When TJ's father was 6 weeks old, he weighed 14 pounds, 4 more than TJ. Even so, the little tiger was healthy and strong. Sheila, the tiger keeper, had trouble holding him still while the vet examined him. The feisty little cub never stopped wiggling until Sheila brought him back to his mother. So here we have another graph. A picture graph can be used to show TJ's weight. This is a picture graph like the one on page 8, but on this graph, blocks are used instead of pictures of tigers. Each block is equal to 1 pound. Each column shows TJ's weight at a particular age. So here on the bottom we see age in weeks, at birth, 6 weeks and 10 weeks. On the side, it says weight in pounds, and I can see it's counting 1, 2, 3, etc. This is another picture of TJ the tiger cub. Every day when Sheila came to the zoo, the first thing she did was check on the tigers. Bukra, protecting her cub, always snarled, spit, and bared her teeth at Sheila. TJ snarled just like his mother. One morning, Bukra didn't snarl at Sheila. The mother tiger lay on her side, completely still. TJ was mewing and pushing his mother and trying to nurse, but Bukra didn't move. Without any warning, she had died. The zoo veterinarian examined Bukra and discovered she had unexpectedly died from cancer. Now who would raise this special baby? Most of the time, mother tigers take care of their cubs alone. Matthew couldn't take care of his son. He didn't know how. So here we can see another graph similar to the one on the last set of pages. Another way to graph TJ's weight is with a bar graph. This bar graph of TJ's weight looks a lot like the picture graph. Each colored square represents 1 pound, just like the blocks of the picture graph. To read the bar graph, choose an age from the numbers along the bottom, then follow the colored bar up until it stops at a line. Follow that line to the left to find out how much TJ weighed at the age you have chosen. So here's Cindy tries to feed TJ at the zoo hospital. Sheila took TJ to be raised by the staff at the animal hospital. The vet was worried when he examined the cub. TJ was not as big as he should have been. The cub was 10 weeks old and weighed only 13 pounds. Because Bukra had been sick, she hadn't been able to feed her cub enough. Cindy, a veterinary assistant at the hospital, put TJ in a cage and gave him a bowl of ground meat mixed with milk. Ignoring the food, TJ walked to a corner of the cage, curled into a ball, and didn't move for hours. The next day, he was still curled up in the same spot. He hadn't touched his food. The hospital staff was worried. The 10-week-old cub hadn't gained much weight since his 6-week checkup. If he didn't start eating soon, he would lose weight, which would be bad for his health. So they're comparing between 6 weeks and 10 weeks. He only gained 3 more pounds, and he should be gaining way more than that. So here we're going to look at another bar graph, which is a comparison. The vet checked to see how much TJ's father's had weighed as a cub. He compared TJ's weight with Matthew's weight at the same ages. At 6 weeks, Matthew weighed 4 pounds more than TJ. At 10 weeks, Matthew weighed 6 pounds more than TJ. Cindy made a bar graph like this one to compare the tigers' weights. The red bars showed TJ's weight. The black bars show Matthew's weight. This graph makes it easy to see that although Matthew and TJ weighed the same amount at birth, Matthew gained more weight than his son did in a 10-week period. TJ flattening his ears and snarls when he is frightened. It was TJ's 3rd day at the hospital and he still hadn't eaten. When Cindy entered his cage, he snarled and showed his teeth, threatening her because he was scared. She put some meat on a wooden stick and placed the meat in his mouth. TJ spat it out. The next day, Cindy tried giving him strained meat from a jar. She thought that TJ might like human baby food. He spat that out too. So here you can see Cindy making a line graph of TJ's weight on an old school computer. Cindy used the zoo's computer to make a line graph of TJ's weight like the one below. Line graphs make it easy to see how something changes. This line graph shows how TJ's weight changed as he grew older. Each point on the graph shows how much TJ weighed at a certain age. The line that connects the points makes it easier to see the whole story that the graph tells. So here you can see he was gaining weight, gaining weight, gaining weight. Uh-oh, not gaining weight right there. Cindy's graph told a disappointing story. TJ was losing weight. The tiger cub had lost 1 pound during his first few days in the hospital. How many people does it take to feed one small tiger? 3. Dr. Cambrai and Dr. Kenny hold the tiger still while Cindy puts meatballs in his mouth. Cindy and the staff began to fear for TJ's life. 5 days had passed and the tiny cub had not eaten anything. Everyone agreed they had no choice but to force TJ to eat. Dr. Kenny and Dr. Cambrai, wearing jackets and heavy gloves, held TJ while Cindy used a stick to place meat at the back of his tongue. It was quite a struggle at first. The small tiger was all teeth and claws. Finally, TJ swallowed 7 meatballs coated with dried milk. Cindy hoped that TJ would eat on his own after he got a taste of food, but the cub still refused to touch the meat in his bowl. To help TJ survive, Cindy and the veterinarians continued to force TJ to eat. So here we have another line graph comparing TJ and Matthew. Here is a line graph of both TJ's and Matthew's weight from birth to 12 weeks. The red line is TJ's weight. The black line is Matthew's weight. At 12 weeks, TJ weighed a lot less than his father did at the same age. So they're noticing the difference here. TJ accepts food from Cindy. On the 11th day, TJ ate 2 meatballs on his own. When Cindy gave the cub a rubber toy, he batted it around. Then she set a meaty bone next to the toy. TJ immediately started chewing on the bone. Everyone started to feel more hopeful. For a few days, TJ seemed to be feeling better. He ate whatever Cindy gave him. Then suddenly, he got fussy. When Cindy put a meatball in his mouth, he spat it out. He smashed the rest of the meatballs and buried them in the hay. To keep his weight up, the hospital staff forced the cub to eat again. All the care and hard work paid off. TJ gained weight at last. There you can see he is finally starting to gain weight. And this says Cindy weighs herself and TJ. Now the graph told a more hopeful story. Looking at the line graph, Cindy could see that TJ had gained 1 pound between 11 and 12 weeks, and 3 more pounds by 13 weeks. TJ was weighed frequently. By 13 weeks of age, the frisky cub was not cooperative about getting on a scale by himself. Cindy had to hold the tiger and step onto the scale. Together, Cindy and TJ weighed 126 pounds. Cindy put the tiger down and stepped back onto the scale alone. It read 110 pounds. By subtracting her weight from their combined weight, Cindy was able to figure out that the tiger cub now weighed 16 pounds. TJ is very eager to eat his meat. Now he's definitely wanting to eat on his own. Cindy was relieved when the tiger cub let her hand feed him on a regular basis. Now he would gain weight more quickly. TJ's favorite food was beef heart rolled in dried milk. By the time he was 14 weeks old, he weighed 19 pounds. The cub gaining weight at a steady rate, and the vet was pleased with his progress. How much TJ ate. This bar graph shows how much meat TJ ate during his first weeks at the hospital. At 11 weeks, TJ got very upset if he was forced to swallow more than 10 ounces of meat a day. By 13 weeks, the cub was eating a lot more. As his appetite increased, so did his weight. And here we see how fast can a tiger learn how to open a refrigerator? Very fast. What's for dinner? As TJ grew more comfortable with the nursery staff, he became more playful. He played hide and seek with Cindy and Denny, another veterinary assistant, on the zoo grounds at night. The tiger cub would hide in the bushes and wait patiently until Denny got close to him. Then he would leap out, grabbing Denny's leg with his paws. Sometimes he would sneak up behind Cindy and pounce on her. Tiger mothers teach their babies how to hunt by playing games like this. The tiger quickly learned to open the nursery room door so he could join his human friends in the kitchen. He also learned how to open the refrigerator door by pulling on the towel hanging there. One time, TJ even helped himself to a bag of meat. By the end of TJ's stay in the zoo hospital, he wanted company all the time, and he cried when he was by himself. So here we have another comparison of TJ and Matthew. This line graph shows how the two tigers grew. When TJ was 18 weeks old, he weighed 31 pounds. At the same age, Matthew had weighed 45 pounds. TJ still had a way to go before he weighed as much as his father, but he was making progress. Sheila feeds TJ. TJ scratches a tree trunk. After learning to live with humans, TJ had a new challenge. He had to leave the hospital, return to the tiger exhibit in the zoo, and live by himself. Cindy visited him often. Sheila, the tiger keeper, hand-fed him so that he would get to know her. TJ played games with Sheila. Sometimes he climbed on a rock and then pounced on her when she entered the exhibit. TJ was afraid to go outside in the tiger yard at first, so Sheila and Cindy went with him. Soon he was having a wonderful time, shredding bark from trees and watching birds and zoo visitors. During the next few years, TJ grew a lot. Here we see another one, how TJ grew. This bar graph of how much weight TJ gained from birth to 4 years old. TJ may have gained weight very slowly just after his mother died, but by the time he was 1 year old, he had gained nearly 200 pounds. And by the time he was 4, he weighed a healthy 500 pounds, even more than his father did. This graph finally tells a happy story. TJ sits at his pool at Zoo Montana. He got to come and live in Montana. When TJ was 2 years old, he moved to a zoo in Billings, Montana, where they had a brand new tiger exhibit, but no tigers. TJ was just what they needed, a big, sleek, healthy tiger weighing 300 pounds. He continued to thrive in his new home. Several years later, when TJ was 4 years old, Cindy went to visit him at Zoo Montana. She watched the tiger splash around in his pool. After she called to him, TJ came over to the fence and chuffled, which is a sound that tigers use as a greeting. Normally, tigers chuffle only to each other. But if a tiger in captivity is especially fond of a person, he will chuffle when his favored person approaches. Cindy knew that TJ still remembered her. Cindy was amazed to see how big TJ was. The tiger keeper at Zoo Montana estimated that TJ weighed 500 pounds. TJ had finally grown bigger than his father. Here we have a couple more pictures. Hiding at the hospital, pouncing on Cindy, hide and seek with Denny, resting on the rocks, and then all grown up TJ at Zoo Montana. So there we have tiger math, learning to graph from a baby tiger. And as you will notice, with every graph, no matter what kind we use, there are always the same important parts. We always need a title, we always need the labels, and we always need the heart of it, the data. So we've always got our topic, our key ideas, and then our details. No matter what kind of graph you are using, those parts will always be the same.